Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Philip Ramos, here with the Strength Studio, doing another interview, bringing you some great content, some great information, and connecting with great people. I'm absolutely super excited about today's interview. Today with me, I have PJ Hanks. She's an author, she's a content creator, course writer, instructor, grandmother, mother, right? All these great hats that she wears. And oil expert. I'm sure some of you guys have seen her speak in convention. Maybe some of you guys have gone to some of her retreat, some of these times when she spoke, you've read her book, you've learned from her. So I am so incredibly excited to have her on with us today. And I think we're going to this is a great treat for everyone, right? We're going to be able to learn things, connect dots. And so thank you, PJ. I just want to say thank you because thank you so much for taking the time. I know how busy you are. When we did our pre-interview, you told me how busy you are, and I'm sure that hasn't changed, right?
No, I wish. No, if I really wished I'd make that happen, but no.
Excellent. And it's what makes you you, right? Helping
Yeah.
people, changing people's lives, and it's a busy work, right? It's a labor of love, if you will.
Well, and you have a great job, Philip. How fun to interview all these amazing people and learn from them.
I know, right?
You do a
This is
great
like this
job.
is like this is
I'm like,
free
I'm going to sit a
information.
fly on your wall for a while.
I love it. All right. Well, jumping into this, PJ, I mean, again, people have they've heard you speak, maybe they've read your book, they've been through some of your courses. Give us, tell us about yourself. Give people, maybe a peek behind the curtain, who you are, what brought you to this journey that you're on, where you're at, and maybe some of the hats that you wear on a day-to-day basis in your private life as well as your career.
That always makes me think of the price of right. What's behind door number one, door number two, door three. I have about 50 of them I could be behind, right?
Right, right, right.
And yeah, I've been around for a while. So you and I were joking about the gray hair I've earned. So
Yes.
and it's kind of funny because I was thinking about this earlier as you mentioned this, this would be a topic we might talk about is the hats that I wear and who am I? And um I don't know. It's like I know that the experiences I've had, the person that I am, the strengths that I have, the experiences that I've had, the things that I've learned
Hmm.
make me who I am today. And I think what I want people to really know is that every single one is very unique.
Mm.
We're all unique. We bring our experiences, we bring um our things we learn, our wisdom, our good or bad,
Yes.
and we create this person who, and sometimes we wonder who are we and who do we really want to be. I'm
Yeah.
still trying to figure that out, by the way.
Who do we want to be when we grow up,
Yeah,
right?
I'm
On
like the
that journey.
Japanese. I'm going to live to be 120, and maybe by then I'll figure it out.
There you go.
And I think you got to have a lot of fun with life. Humor is how you often survive a lot of things
Yes.
and bring some joy into your life, or why are we living?
Yeah.
But I grew up in Eastern Oregon on a ranch. Spent my summers riding horse, and
Mm.
it's typical things of that. And I came from huge families on both sides of my
Mm.
parents. So I mean, on my one generation, on my mom's side, there's 53 cousins.
Wow.
So people just like, there's this part of me that's just been part of a big family. And I just see life as one big family. But I think that also gave me a lot of roots.
Mm.
And I had this opportunity in my life to have deep roots. And then also the opportunity to just have wings, which is what I always had a goal as a parent. Is that my goal as a parent is to give my children roots, and then to encourage them to fly
Mm.
and to continue to do that. And because I've been granted that in my life, I
Yes.
had some good roots, and then I've had opportunities to fly, and I've I've like fell a few times, and you pick up and it's the little bird out of the nest. But
For the journey.
I think that's important. And it's not just in one area of your life that you have to learn to do that. It's
Yeah.
several. And there's times in your life where, when I was a young mom and trying to juggle a business and life, things have different priorities and you're good at it and you have more energy and you have things. And then when you're an empty nester and you can do things you're more passionate about, and you can decide where you're going to spend your time a little bit
Yeah.
more. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. So anyway, yeah, I've raised three children, a boy, a girl, boy. They're all adults now. One is married and has three beautiful granddaughters.
Hmm.
I love being a grandma. And I'm married to a great man who I think has been a rudder in my life because he's this very stable force, helps me see reason sometimes. But he's also allowed me to have those wings and to fly and has encouraged that, which I think is important in any relationship, is to allow each other to do that and to grow together
Yeah.
and have that. We've learned our strengths together. In the Strength Finders, we love learning more about who we are and growing together, and that just continues. So I think if we can't teach not a dog new tricks attitude, it's not going to be fun life.
Right.
So,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, and of course I've been doing doTERRA for 13 years. I've worked in corporate. I've worked in a small office. Um, I've been working on my parents owned a restaurant on top of owning a ranch. So I grew up at the age of 9 washing running the dishwasher, and my parents never really gave me money but I always had opportunities to earn money
Hmm. Hmm.
and babysat and all those things. So I've been working ever since I was little.
Oh, wow.
Um, so to me, and plus when you grow up in, I think, a farming community and with lots of family, you just know work is part of life.
Hmm. Hmm.
You dig in and you do that. So that's a little bit of who I am. Um, I've written a book. I've written a few editions of the same book, which is now a membership site.
Mm.
I've become an aromatherapist. I just got done writing a course for a naturopath school, that's all online. So, it's never ending.
Well, and I love what you said, when you talked about becoming an empty nester. You talked about, you mentioned how we can start investing into more of our passions. And I think that
Yeah.
that's kind of, one of the great things about, when we talk about our grays or we talk about, transitioning, and we get to that certain point where we're done with the people pleasing. We're done with,
Oh, yeah.
all of these stories that we probably ran for, most of our upbringing and belief systems. And then we start to really get behind these ideas and these concepts, and we start running with passions. And I'm sure that that probably fuels a lot of all the different things you do, right? And what you do today.
Right. Right. Because when you're a young mom, my passion was to be a good mom
Sure.
and to raise my kids, but also, I worked on the side. I've had my own business on and off since, I don't know, I was in my early 30s.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, it's always a juggling act in your entire life.
Yeah.
But now the juggling is more of like, what do I really want to do today?
It's more purposeful, right?
Yeah,
Purposeful.
it's more purposeful, and it's more, and that's one of the reasons I love being an entrepreneur is I don't have to ask. I've been in jobs where I had to ask to go get the haircut, or I've had
Right.
to ask for time to go to the doctor,
Right.
and I don't like that because, like, I want to be able to choose.
Yeah, yeah. So with everything that you've done, you talked about your family. They owned a restaurant, all the different things. You learned earning for an age. You started a business in your 30s. So obviously very entrepreneurship minded. But jumping into, let's say, doTERRA network marketing, what was kind of so that others can relate to you with all the things that you do, and they hear you, when you speak, that sort of thing. What was the driving force when you decide, I'm going to do doTERRA as a business, I'm going to do network marketing as a business, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and grow this thing? What was kind of that driving force? What was the motivator behind that?
Well, it was kind of interesting because I think oftentimes, if we really lead a life on purpose,
Mhm.
you're inspired as to what you should be doing,
Mm.
or you're led, or you ask. And I'm a very religious person with a lot of faith, and we were at a point where our kids were starting to go off to college. We had a lot of health issues in our family, and so we were like, uh, and I was working a part-time job, which was helping pay the bills and
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
but it wasn't going to fund the kids through college
Right.
and
Right.
all those things. And my kids actually paid for a majority or earned their scholarships and stuff. So, but still, there was those costs of sending your kids off and
Mhm.
all those things. So, I remember there was a day, and I was dealing with some severe health issues myself, and I remember getting depressed,
Mm,
and I'm not that kind of person. I remember sitting in a chair one day and thinking, I just don't care anymore. It's
mhm.
like, and I thought, whoa, wait a minute, that's not me.
Right,
That's
right.
So I remember saying to my husband, we need to make this a matter of prayer because our
Mm,
health in this family needs to change. We need to find a way to move forward financially without worry and stress
right.
and stuff. And so that's kind of what we did. And 2 weeks later, my cousin's having dinner, and they had all these oils in their kitchen. They were actually, at the time, I didn't know, but they were making samples for some big event.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I was worried I was going to get a headache from the
Oh,
smell.
from all the smell.
Yeah, yeah. But as we sat there at dinner, and they were really sweet in that they never talked about really about the oils, that we
Yeah,
because we hadn't seen each other in a while. We were busy catching up and
yeah.
on lives and our kids, and all I could think about was, I didn't get this headache.
Right,
What are those things in their kitchen? I just couldn't stop thinking about that, right?
right.
And so, and then towards the end of dinner, I said, "What are those things in your kitchen?" Which led to a 3 hour in the kitchen discussion of tasting and smelling and asking a million questions.
I love it.
And so you have to keep in mind, that's the question I had asked, was how to, and the whole time I'm like, oh, this is the answer to our health problems. I
Mm,
had no idea how.
hmm.
And I think oftentimes when we ask questions, to God, the universe, however you think of it, and we say, help us find that thing, we don't necessarily say, give us the exact steps.
Right.
So we're just saying, point us in that direction.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that I feel like he's like, here's your point. Now you'll figure it out.
yeah.
And I had enough faith in myself that we'd figure that out. And then I remember saying to her, I said, and she would just drop lines like, oh yeah, my husband's quit his job. We're doing this now. And da, da, da. And I just remember saying, do you think I could do this? Now, keep in mind, I had no idea what this meant.
Right,
I
right.
wasn't like,
You just saw
oh,
it.
and to be honest, I never even thought it was a network market. I mean, I didn't really know what all that. I just thought, oh, can I make money if I share oils and if this
Yeah,
works,
yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah.
I just said the phrase, do you think I can do this? And she's like, well, yeah, you could do this easy.
Yeah.
And so, because I'm remembering in the back of my mind, remember I'd asked two questions.
Hmm.
How can we financially take care of things? And how
Yes.
can we uh, help our health change?
Mm,
And so again, I having no idea the how of how that would work. I wasn't like I was focused with her on, okay, well, tell me the hows and intricacies. I was more of
yeah.
like, okay, I think I found both directions now.
Yeah.
How great, they'll do for one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I remember calling my husband that night because I was visiting my daughter in college, and that's why we went over there for dinner. And
Mhm.
so he wasn't with me, and I said, "Hey, I think I found the answer to both our questions."
Wow.
And I was telling him all about it, and he said, "Well, come on home, and we'll talk about it." And again, he wasn't one like, "Well, I have to." He was like, "Come home, tell me about it.
Yeah.
If you got the answer, we're not gonna. We're always like, if you get the answer, we're not gonna argue with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
figure it out. We've always
Yeah.
like, we'll figure out the how."
Yeah.
So we came home, and from there it blossomed into what it became today, that we've done now for 14 some years.
I
And and grew the business. We have a large team and all over the world. So it's just amazing how that can happen. And so I never ever thought, oh, I'm in network marketing.
sure.
Because I don't see doTERRA as, and I always get a little prickly when people are like, oh, it's a network, it's an MLM, a network. I'm like, you have no idea. So obviously I don't really want to talk to you. Not really, but I'm just like, no, it's all about helping people, and it's about finding financial freedom as well.
Yeah.
And um, does it really matter the how?
Sure.
If it's your answer, if that's what you're looking for, does it really matter the how?
Does the vehicle really matter, right?
Yeah, it matters is if you're, and I think that's why again the roots came in, right, of like,
Mhm.
I know why I'm doing this, and for a couple of reasons, because it changed our family's health dramatically, it changed our lives financially, And again, I could start helping other people get those same answers to their prayers or
Right.
same things they're looking for.
Yeah.
And that's what drives me is it's funny when they called last year and asked me to speak at convention the first time. And I said, this is not on my dream board. I'm not one of those people who have like, be on the stage. I'm like, that's not important to me. Um, and I said, but if that's what you want, I'm always happy to talk and
Sure,
speak and
sure.
whatever. And so then they called me a month later and said, we want you to speak at this particular session. I'm like, well, I'm already speaking. And they said, well, we know that. And I said, and it's not on my dream board. It's not like, oh man, now I get to be on stage twice. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, now I have to pick out two outfits. This is
Right. Now I got to create two
yeah,
slide
yeah,
decks.
yeah, two presentations. Um, so it's just funny how life happens. But
Yeah.
I do love to teach if it's going to help people change their lives and understand, communication is the second strength I have.
Mm,
So I love to teach. I love to help. My degree is in adult communication and education and
yeah.
training and development. So I love teaching people so that a light bulb comes on, so that they find their answers like I found my answers.
I love that. And I love what, when you talk about, going over to, relatives, dinner, oils, and, ultimately you had two questions, right? That you and your husband were, looking answers for, praying for. And I think that so often, we force specific or it's got to look a certain way, and here you're like, oh, maybe this is it. Could I do this? Right, your question is, could this work for me? Could this solve what I was looking, what that I deemed as a problem or looking for solutions to? And because I look at who you are today and what I've listened in, right, we talked about this right before we started about what my wife said, oh, PJ this, and that sort of thing. And I think that so many people hear you today and hear how you know about the chemistry and your knowledge and all these great things. But yet you, 14 years ago, were sitting in a kitchen, you smelled something, and you're like, could I do this? Right.
Yeah.
And there's obviously a lot that has happened within that process. So with someone like, I mean, you've created quite, in my experience, and based on what I know and what I hear from other people, you are an oil expert, if you will. I mean, that's, I mean, whether you give yourself that title or not, I mean, I think that that's definitely something how people listen to you and hear, especially when you talked about, the new fragrances product. So with all that being said, from your start to where you are today, how is that, what inside of you, you mentioned your communication and sharing and teaching people, what with your strengths, your experience, what really led you from that point of being in the kitchen and smelling and thinking, I could do this, to who you are today? What was that? What influenced that? What strengths influenced that? What did that look like?
Well, my top 5 or 6 strengths are, of course, are achiever, communication, activator, arranger, competition, includer. And interesting enough, let's talk. Well, the ones that probably drove that was, achiever. I like
Sure.
to achieve and accomplish things. I'm a list maker. I was making my list today and check it off
Check,
the list,
check.
and
Yep, yep.
execute makes me happy.
Yeah,
I love to communicate. I love to teach. I'm an activator. Let's get things done,
sure.
move forward. Let's do this. I'm not afraid. Like writing a book. It's not like, again, that wasn't on my dream board. Like, oh, I have to have a book someday or whatever, which is
Yeah.
great if that's what you want. But for me, it
Sure.
was like, no, I just want to reach a lot of people and
Oh,
help them understand. And I want to communicate that in an easy way. So I'm not a chemist. I'm not a scientist, but what I'm really good at is learning stuff and then turning that around and teaching it in a really simple thing. Like I had somebody from doTERRA. I was going to speak at another one of their events, and I said, look, you don't have to keep asking me for every single one of these events. She goes, yeah, but I need you to explain what that scientist just told us. So that's where I'm good. And so I learned when I was doing aromatherapy school here in Seattle, I learned this a beautiful I learned about chemistry
mm,
of the oils and why they work. And I just then started traveling the country and teaching people people would say, hey, would you come teach my team? And, those were the days prior to all the Zoom classes we did, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That we do now.
yeah.
And so I traveled all over the country for people's teams to teach them about the chemistry of the oils. And then I was like, man, there's got to be something better than traveling. All this is fun for a while, but I'm just going to put all this in a book.
Mm.
So then I wrote a book, and people love that. And then, we learn more about essential oils. The research on essential oils blows your mind today compared to 15 years ago. Digging up articles and research were really more difficult.
Right.
On specific topics. And so every couple of years, it's like I had to update the book because there's more research. And that's why I've moved it to a membership site is, I'm done with the paper. I'm done with the books. Let's just put it on a site where I can update it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
have at your fingertips some of the latest, greatest, and yet still understand things in a really basic, simple way.
Mm-hmm.
What was your question? I'm an activator, and so that was where the activator came in. I'm just like, okay, well, let's get this done. Let's just make a book
Yeah.
and do a book. And that's a funny story in and of itself. And I don't know what people will glean from it, but I had been thinking about taking that class and making it into a book. And I woke up on a Sunday morning, and the whole book I just saw the whole book from page to the end, from cover to end. So I called my graphic design artist, because I'd been talking to her about it. And I said, hey, what do you think? You think we could do this? And she said, yeah, I think we could do this. And then I said, well, here's the thing. It's very clear it has to be done in 6 weeks. And she's like, what? And I said, I don't know. Can we do this in 6 weeks? So I called my daughter-in-law, who was also a graphic design artist, who was also going to help with this whole project. And I said, do you think we can do this in 6 weeks? And she's like, yeah, sure. So the two of them were willing to help me and get this done. And we got it done in 4 weeks, had it to the printer, off the press in 6 weeks. Right. And about a month later was when the FDA had us change a lot of the ways we do things.
Right.
And so I would not have been able, it would have been much more difficult to write and release that book.
Right.
So I guess the message there is follow your inspiration, follow that intuition, whatever leads you, guides you, is the heart. If I hadn't listened to that, activated it, and just knew that we could achieve it, we had our checklist, we just did our things. We knew my one graphic design artist has worked with lots of printers. So she knew exactly what we needed to have it to the printer.
Yeah.
And it was done. So, that's kind of what drives a lot of that, and how I get things done, is doing those three. As far as, so what I wanted to do is talk about competition for a minute, because
yes, please do.
I always felt that number 5, competition, and they sometimes say, well, the 5 is what drives everything, and I was like, well, I don't know about that. But
yeah.
I kind of felt like I was extremely competitive in my 20s. It's like, sometimes it would create actual relationship issues among girlfriends sometimes, because I didn't understand then what it was, right?
Sure.
I saw them more as competitors than, and I don't know, we learn.
Yes.
And so it began to kind of like a bad taste in my mouth. Like, I don't want to be the competitor. I don't want to be the one who ruins a relationship because I feel like I've got to win or I've got to do this.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I took the strengths, I saw that. I'm like, what? No, I don't want it in my top 10. Then, of course, I had a long talk with Jeremy, who was the Strength Finders coach at the time I was working with. And he helped me understand that the only person you're really competing against is yourself.
Correct.
And provided it's healthy competition or healthy things that drives you, then that's great. And so I've learned to kind of use competition. It is an influencing strength. So I've used it to kind of bring that influencing piece out and compete against myself. I do see it still come out every now and then in a good way.
Sure.
Like, our family plays a lot of games, and
I'm
a silent competitor. I'm not the one who's like, I'm going to beat you. I'll just sit there and play. And they now make jokes. If mom's being quiet, we have to pay attention because she's
Mom's
just
over
going to
here.
sleuthily come in and just beat us all. And that's kind of what I did with the incentive trip last year. We were nowhere on the list.
I
Nowhere
remember
on
that. Yeah.
Yeah. We were nowhere on that list to win that competition to go on the incentive trip. And then somebody complained on the Facebook group or something about how it was being counted. And I was like, what? Really? Is that how it's being counted? Because I remember I was so busy
Yeah.
writing talks, finishing
Yeah.
a class, all these things. That was the last thing on my mind. I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to go look. So I looked, I dug, and I'm like, oh my land, we could win this. We could actually earn this trip with just a few little things. So my husband verified I was right. My account manager verified I was right. And within 2 weeks, we literally did a couple things and won the trip.
Wow.
And again, I felt bad because whoever watches the list all the time was like, okay, this is where I'm at. And, if I want to be here, and I'm like, we just came in and landed right at 118th
Mm,
when it was all over.
that's amazing.
And I thought, okay, there's the competition, but it was
Yeah.
healthy. I always want to do the check. Is it healthy?
Yes.
That we did it for ourselves and whatever. So I let that competition take over in those last 2 weeks of August and do that little trip. So, and then includer, I don't have it's my only relationship strength in my top 10.
Hmm.
And yet it drives almost everything
Mm.
because I have to hold back sometimes because I'll sometimes want to include everybody.
Sure.
Like, oh, you don't have a party to go to, come to our party. Oh, you don't have a team, be on our team, or not in a cross room, but oh, I don't care, just join our
Just
stuff,
come. Just come. Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually do that sometimes, but I'm just that way. I just want to include.
Yeah.
And because now that I understand it's my only relationship strength that's strong, I let it shine a lot of the time.
Mm.
But I do have to occasionally, when I go to invite people, I have to go, okay, who's the other crowd? Are they going to be mad that I'm including? Like my kids would always be at Thanksgiving. I'd invite all these people, from our church who didn't have anywhere to go. And finally, my kids were like, that's just what they do. That's what she does. It's like, we never know who's going to come to dinner, right?
Right, 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 right.
But I grew up in that kind of family
Mm.
where what's another cousin at the table? What's another, uh, because my grandparents were
Friend or whatever, right?
there, right?
Acquaintance of acquaintance.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's a little bit about, I think, going back to whatever your question was,
No, I
that
love that. And I think that because again, so many people they look where one of the fun part of these interviews is we get to dissect, right? How are people on stage? They've reached these ranks, founder 2.0, whatever rank they're at, right? And then, but we see them there, but we don't necessarily connect ourselves to their journey or where they started. And just listening about, your story of, okay, I was in this kitchen, these fragrances, right? Oils at the time, you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to get a headache, right? Yet the headache didn't come, so it made you more intrigued, and then looking for the answers to your questions of money and health. And I really love that because I think that sometimes people think it's maybe more complicated than that, and then more importantly, that you have to have all of this credibility when coming to a situation or even into doTERRA or network marketing and say, okay, you got to know everything before you get here. But I think one of the great things that, again, as I'm listening to you share, as I'm listening to your story, you brought who you were, right? Your strengths, they've always been in you. You've identified them. You're learning to master them as we are all on this journey of mastery for ourselves. But here you've taken the who you are, the best versions of you are, and you had an opportunity that answered those two questions. And you've not just, I would say, make the best of it, but you've thrived. The things you're doing, the things you're creating for others. And I think this is where you're includer, right? Your communication, you're doing it. That was one thing that we talked about before we started is all these, what you're motivated by are those people, helping those others, right? You're inviting them to your learning table, to your oil table, to your knowledge table, so they can participate. They can develop, they can grow, they can heal, they can do all these things. And it's so amazing to see how one particular person is going to use one particular theme in a totally different way to accomplish an incredible result. And I think you're such an amazing example of that, PJ. It's so great to hear again the stories, and then to be able to connect all these cool dots, of your journey along the way. That's inspiring. I think it's
Well,
it's
thank you.
incredible.
Thank you. That's all that really matters to me, is that people get one little thing sometimes. That's all they need to just have hope and move forward. Right.
Yeah.
So,
No, I love that. I love that. So now, in reflecting on your journey, right, going back and thinking about that from the time you started to where you are today, can you think of like maybe a key moment, right? There was something, a moment, a switch, a light switch. Obviously, that first moment of being in the kitchen and thinking, I didn't get a headache, right? That was one of them.
yeah.
But what about, another moment along the way, along your journey, when you realize, again, like your book, or this, and thinking, can I take this into a book, right? Light switch, 4 weeks later, you have a book. What's another moment where you really feel like, something came in that made a massive shift into where you started to where you are today?
Well, that's a hard question. Well, it's not a hard question. It's just, I'm
Yeah.
not sure I know the answer to that. Because I think we all have things going on in our everyday lives that we don't realize are guiding us towards the next decision.
Hmm. Hmm.
And every experience we're going through, everything we're learning. And sometimes we have such a thirst for learning that we have, I think one of the great things I learned about strengths um, early on was you sometimes have to set them at the door.
Oof, for sure.
You have to sometimes, like my includer, I have to say, be quiet a minute. Just,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know you really want to invite this whole crowd, and other people won't be happy about it. It's not the right time. Let it go, right? There's times
Yeah.
you have to set those at the door. And I think there's times, a lot of times I see this in even I can apply this to doTERRA, but I think we see this in all of businesses. We always see all these shiny objects of, oh, let's do this program, let's do that program, and oh, my business is missing this. And pretty soon we have stacks and stacks of books, we have passwords to a zillion programs, and we don't get to any of them.
Right.
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 Because
Right.
we're just looking for that. And uh, I think that a couple things come in mind is, one is you just have to be simple, just keep it simple, to keep it true to who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and realize it doesn't take much to like turn that key, and that what you're learning, listen to that,
Mm.
and take it in, process it. And oftentimes I don't make decisions just because it sounds like a good deal, or,
Mm.
oh, this I need something. It's more like, okay, obviously I'm a little stuck here, or we need to do something different. It's time for a little bit of a change. And I might spend weeks looking and just exploring until I just know I've hit that right thing. I've
Mm.
just found that right thing, or the thing
Mm.
that I need, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard sometimes for us to have patience in today's world for
Yeah.
that to happen,
Yeah.
for us to say, oh, yeah, okay, there's 15 ways I can teach an introductory class.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And whatever's going to be best for you is what really matters at this moment. And yeah, maybe you're going to change it in 6 months or a year. Um, but you just have to find what rings and resonates with you, because then you're going to be more passionate about it, and you're going to do it. I don't know, I just feel fine to tell you about the first class I ever, so like 2 weeks after, I finally became a member, and I'm like, okay, how do we kick this off? Well, this is my first class. And this was in the days where there weren't 15 million different ways you could teach the class. There was no class.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Right. I had what was then a Modern Essentials book. It
Yeah.
was like a half-inch thick.
Yeah.
And now we had ordered the Every Oil kit because we had all these health issues. We
Right.
knew we were going to do it as a business, which means we could write it off as a business expense.
Yeah.
So we bought the whole kit of oils. And so I simply invited 6 of my closest friends
Mm-hmm.
to come sit around my kitchen table.
Yeah.
And I just said, hey, I want to teach you about these things I've got, these essential oils. And because they love me, they show up,
Yes. Yeah.
or because so and so was coming or whatever. They show
Yeah.
up, and I ended up having 5 people around my door. around my table. My neighbor across the street came for a little bit and then she had to leave, which is, I'll tell you that story in a minute. But anyway, all five of these, this was my class,
Yeah.
is I said, hey, this is what I've learned. And here's a book. It'll tell you what each oil does, and and you can look up your element and figure out an oil. So I said, we're just going to pass the book around and you can open the box, you can smell whatever you want. And you can get a wholesale, buy them wholesale. It's a better way to do it. And,
Yeah.
get on a monthly order and all that. And I didn't really like, you have to do it this way or anything. It was just like, we were just into the oils. And so they all looked up their particular problems and we talked about it. And, they all left and I had 5 enrollments.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But again, it was simple.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's the simplest thing that just works.
Yes.
And my neighbor who had come and went, she ended up doing a retail order for 2 oils, but she now is one of my largest legs on my team.
Wow, that's
Right?
incredible.
She's another diamond and she's amazing. And so out of this one class where I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't even know that much about oils, but I had the book
Hmm.
and I had a phone call to my enroller, where I could call, but it was just like, okay, pick out some oils you want to try, pick out some things.
Hmm.
And they all signed up. And there's a couple of them that are still on LRO today.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So I think that's important to know. That, again, we often look for we spend so much time on the how and worrying, am I doing it right? Am I
Mm.
doing it the right way? Or maybe this system is better or that system's better. I'm like,
Right.
which resonates with you?
Yes.
All my leaders don't have to do it my way. They're all their own unique people.
Right.
Let them do it their way.
Yeah.
And help them till they figure that out. Let them use your way, whatever. But know that everybody's unique.
Hmm.
And if you listen to that instinct of what's going to work for you and let them figure it out, it's like teaching a baby to walk, right?
Hmm.
You just have to kind of think. But that's the thing I think I've learned. And sometimes I have to tell myself, don't make it complicated.
Yes. Well, and that's probably, going back to what you talked about, you've mentioned that multiple times about, you said kind of what you're good at, right? Is simplifying, right? Making,
Mm-hmm.
making something simpler, making something easier. And I think that's important. When you and I first met the first time we were talking, I mentioned the importance of where you talked about onboarding. And one of the things about, good onboarding, the Gallup has identified as the single biggest component in people's what drives people's success versus people that don't. And the more complicated, right, the more just because the system looks good to maybe someone else, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to onboard them properly. And I think going back to what you've done very well is simplifying, even though the information is still there, the learning is still there, but creating that simplicity to it, I think is what I think is important, and key for people to identify, and then identifying the person you're talking to, right? The strengths of them or how they think they're operating, and then allowing them to flourish in who they are, knowing that they got oils, they got these things, they got the vehicle happens to be the same, the product happens to be the same, but how they go about that can be fun and creative in their own way. And I loved what you talked about, checking the strength at the door, right? Not everybody, we can't. There's times when our includer needs to, right, pull back. I have communication high as well, so there's times when I'm like, okay, Philip, learn how to listen, right, and then less talking. I have positivity at number one, right? All right, Philip, let's less positivity. Don't try to just smooth over what they're saying, with just sprinkles and flowers. Let's think about what they're saying. So same thing, with what you had said, what do you think is one of the, identifying maybe some of your own themes, your strengths, whether if it's your achiever, whether it's your communication, whether if it's your includer, right? The themes that you have, your competition, what are some of the things that you've learned about your themes and when you allow them to play, and maybe some of the blind spots that you're like, okay, all right, easy there, theme. We're going to put you, instead of the driver's side, we're going to put you in the back seat. Buckle your seatbelt because, this
Yeah.
this theme is going to drive for a bit, right?
Right. We're going to let this thing play out here.
Yes, yes.
Well, my achiever is, I mean, it's my number one. And, I love to achieve. And
Yeah.
so, just an example is I can get on a call with my other builders on my team, and I have this list. And my idea of the successful call is I successfully checked off everything and we've talked about it all.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. But I know that, and here's the other thing I think is important about family work and teamwork is helping people understand you
Mm,
to some degree,
mm.
and not saying, well, that's just how I am, but saying, look, I'm an achiever. And if I start going this direction, pull me back. Well, or just, if I just need a little nudge that I need to like get back,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
then do that. And so, but now I'm really good at kind of checking myself like halfway through the meeting as people would chime in and make comments. And I'm like, this is not accomplishing my list. There's this part of me that I'm like, but that's good because
Yeah.
what she's sharing is really important and we're all learning from her. And so I've learned to kind of like step back and go, it's not, and that's where I'm thankful understand my strengths and I understand me, is that doesn't have to be a successful meeting. I don't have to check everything off.
Right, right, right.
But yet my team knows that if I don't, I get a little frustrated.
Yeah.
And so I've learned to just say, okay, it's important I get through the next 3 items and then we can talk about this. So we've learned, you just learn like in any in families, we do that.
Yeah.
But we've learned to we tolerate more. But if you understand more, it's so much easier to love them through what they've got and why they act the way they do, and appreciate that they bring that to the table. Right. Strategy is absolutely, in fact, I should look. Where is it at on my thing? Where's strategy? Strategic is like 23. I go, you want to like make me leave a meeting, start talking and strategizing. It just drives me crazy. It's like such a waste of my, it's not activating, it's not arranging, it's not achieving, it's just strategizing. And the arranger in me has already strategized pretty darn fast.
Yeah, yeah. You've already connected the dots where you're like, this is what we do to get this result.
Right. But yet I've learned to just take a breath, because I have some leaders who are very strong and strategic.
Right.
And I've learned to appreciate what they bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes my arranger didn't see it all.
Mm.
And I also let my intuition be a lot of my guide.
Yeah.
So that plays like a weave through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, step back and let them do their strategizing.
Mm.
But I've also helped them understand that it's really frustrating for me, and like a big, not necessarily on my team, but I've been on planning groups and stuff where they have to strategize for, 5 different meetings before they start. And I'm like, you're driving me nuts. Bring me in when you've got it narrowed down.
Right, right.
I'll arrange it for you. I'll get it to happen.
Yeah.
I just don't want to be the part of like, so I've learned to try to like say, okay, that's a good thing and that's not a good thing. And so not only just setting a strength at the door, but also realizing where you're not good at things and letting other people who can bring that in and do that. I hate restorative is 34. My family knows I don't do returns. You give me a gift, I'll give it away before I go return it, because I just hate returns.
Yeah.
And I realized today I ended up having like 5 different customers have order problems today or whatever.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I just found myself and I'm like, wait a minute. It's your restorative wanting to speak here and say, this is such a hassle.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then wait a minute. Can we switch this to achiever? Can we just put it on a list that we got to fix these things? And then can we arrange the fixing of it?
Yes.
So there's times when you have to take these ones you don't even want to go there with.
Yes.
And go, okay, I don't have to use that strength. I don't have to have it be mad or frustrated. Instead, how can I bring in the strengths that I have and let it take care of it? Because it's a thing I have to fix. I can't, if I'm going to be a good customer support person, I have to take care of these things.
Yeah.
Because the part of me is like, oh, just call member services, let them fix it. But then you know that half the time it's not going to work out the way you really want it to, and you're
Yeah,
going to end
yeah,
up
for
fixing it
sure.
even more so the next time. So that, I think that's an opposite example, but it's the same thing of where you are like, okay, I know that's frustrating me because it's one of my frustrating strengths.
Sure.
I'm not, it's not a superpower I have. It's
Yeah.
restorative things.
Yeah. Can I,
So I can bring in something else to let that happen. In the same vein, a ranger is where I'm really happy. If I want to feel like at peace and calm, I'm arranging things. Like you take an arranger and achiever and ask us how many calendars we go through in a year and different planners. We've tried them all. It's just who we are. We got to find the best way to arrange and achieve things. And finding the ultimate system is good for 6 months, and then you got to look for something different.
right, right. No, I
But
love that. That's awesome.
I have found that when I'm really emotionally spent and I've just like I just kind of feel like we've all had that. We've been on Zooms for 6 hours or whatever.
Right,
Like I just
right,
cannot do anymore.
right.
For me, a ranger is where I feed my bucket. It's where I'm happy. So I'll walk into my closet and I range, or
Mm,
I'll range laundry. People are like, "Why do you like doing laundry?" It's an arranging job. You sort it, you wash it, you fold it. It's
hold it.
arranging,
Yep,
right?
yep.
So I make this joke: if you find me in my closet, I'm in my happy place because I'm just arranging.
That's awesome.
I might be putting that color over there, whatever. But it's just part of arranging things. So learning what strengths bring you that peace and that happiness, fill your bucket, and what ones you're frustrated with or you don't feel like you just because it's low on your list doesn't mean you don't need it,
Right,
but you can use it to like includer is my only relationship strength. And yet I'm super good at relationships, I'd like to think.
right.
But it's because I've helped that kind of make up for all the others I don't have,
Yeah, yeah.
or that are not, it's not that I don't have them; they're just not shining as like the other ones are.
Well,
So I
I
don't know if that really answered your question,
no,
but
it totally does. No, it totally does. I
I
think that
think
one of the
that's kind of how you. Oh, the responsibility. So number 9 is my responsibility, and sometimes I feel responsible for things I don't need to feel responsible for, and I've learned to just set it at the door and say, oh, "You don't need to own that. Just let it go."
you're like, I'm not saying
You
yes
know
to that.
what's the phrase? Somebody else's monkeys. I just like I don't need to own that anymore.
Yeah,
So
that's
just
right.
let it
They're
go. I'm
circus
not going
day
to feel
monkeys, right?
bad. I'm not going to feel bad about that.
I love that. That's awesome. I think that, one of the things that, and I love how you said when you're talking to other leaders or other people, and you're trying to get through your list, yet they're maybe more strategic and more things, you're giving you're not just, yourself, but you're also giving them permission, to show up. You're encouraging them to be their way. And I think that going back to the strengths that we have up higher versus the ones in the bottom, they're not necessarily strengths and weaknesses. What we're looking at is what drives and motivate us. So in the situation of, the orders that are going wrong, it's not you being motivated by your restorative. No, you're motivated by, okay, let's use my achiever, let's use my arranger, let's use these things that drive me and motivate me to accomplish this thing that maybe I don't want to do. But instead of trying to lean down here, right, we use these things to drive and motivate. Same thing with when you mention your relationships, just because includer maybe you're only one, you're obviously, communicating and engaging and, achieving certain things and arranging certain things, which probably you bring all of those things to your relationships, which makes you great. And I love that. I absolutely love that. And it's a great example of how I think some people make the assumption that you need influencing strengths to influence or executing strengths to get things done. I, like you, my only executing strength is a ranger, also at number 10. And believe it or not, I love doing the laundry. I love it. Like the laundry is what I do in the house because I'll find myself too. I'm like, okay, I
Bring it
got
on.
so much on my brain. I'll be back. I'm going to go do some laundry and fold it because that's how I need to work things out real quick.
Yeah, it's like it's a relaxing thing for you, right?
Yeah.
A ranger should unite. Right.
Yes, 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 yes. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, identifying that in terms of what, how you support other people, who you are, who they are. What do you think? You've talked a lot about, different combination things. You even use the word superpower, and I love that. What do you consider is your superpower? If you can like really nail it down, because obviously from the beginning of your journey to where you are today, all the great things you've accomplished, you can definitely see all your themes in that. But if you could really, maybe it's a pairing, maybe it's something, but what do you think your superpower is in business, in life, the thing that you've realized that you've gotten so good at that has allowed you to accomplish all the things you've accomplished?
Well, interesting enough, and this will take us a little bit off of strengths for a minute, and then I'll bring it
Okay.
back.
Oh.
And we talked about this in another time, but so in the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 year, maybe more like 8 or 9, time flies.
Mhm.
Um, I've had the opportunity to learn about highly sensitive people,
Oh, yes. Yes.
and actually about 35 to 45% of people, and I think that number is growing, are highly sensitive people.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because people can go study that. There's some great books out there. The one I started with, which was awesome because we have two of our granddaughters, or especially one, is extremely highly sensitive. And so
Yeah.
I read this book called Parenting the Highly Sensitive Child. And
Mhm.
I'm like, man, where was this book when I was raising kids? But I'm going to tell you the number one thing it did for me is it taught me all about myself, is that I'm a highly sensitive person.
Mhm.
And growing up, a highly sensitive person can often feel like the weirdo
Mhm.
because we feel things, where we tend to internalize things. Sometimes we can sense things.
Mm.
And there's tests you can take, and here's the thing: it's not an illness, it's not a disease, it's not a brain change or anything like
Right.
that.
Right.
It's more of a, I don't know, it's a intuitive spiritual sort of thing. Some people are just more in tune than others, and it's not good or bad.
Yeah.
So and I'm married to a non-highly sensitive person, which is actually a very good match,
Mhm.
because knowing this one thing and teaching it to our family has, because again, we're realizing that about a third of the family are highly sensitive.
Oh, wow.
It's helped us be um, more loving
Mm.
with each other and more understanding of things before, like, why. So for example, if a highly sensitive two people can go out for the day, maybe it's a hot summer day,
Mhm.
and the non-highly sensitive wears the hat, thinks it's hot, but they're just cooling off and they're fine. And
Mhm.
oh, we haven't eaten for 5 hours, no big deal, I'll eat when I get home. And the highly sensitive person's like, I'm melting, I'm miserable because I feel it,
Yeah.
and I'm starving, and I'm going to bite your head off, and I'm going to, you know it's like, you don't they lose a little bit of control because it's become so internalized.
Right.
So understanding highly sensitive patterns, and who is and who isn't, and I think there's a pair, there's like a spectrum of how highly sensitive you can be, and
Mm.
other times, like if I get good sleep, if I eat well, if I'm things are going well, I really understand. And the more educated you are about it, the better.
Right.
Whereas
Right.
before, I would have these days and I'd be so frustrated, and my husband's like, what's wrong with you? What's your problem? Whereas now we understand that, and we
Yeah.
know, okay, do you have your snacks packed? Okay, it's really hot, so we're going to do shaded things at this time, and we're going to do
Yeah.
you just accommodate those needs,
Yeah.
because I believe that being highly sensitive is a superpower. We
Mm.
Highly sensitive people can walk in a room and know immediately, kind of like, who they don't want to be near,
Sure.
who they want to like magnet towards,
Right.
who
Right.
they might want to just go, or they just want to go hide in the kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not being an introvert or extrovert, because you have both introvert, extroverts, highly sensitive people.
Sure. Sure.
It's just that sometimes we emotion out a lot. Like
Yeah.
if I'm on a Zoom calls for 3 or 4 hours one morning, I know the afternoon's shot. I don't want
Sure.
to talk to people. I don't want to be around. I don't want anything to
I'm
take any more
done.
energy. I just want to go fold some laundry. I just
Yeah.
want to go. clean my, I just want to do some things that are going to arrange things, because for me, that fills
Right.
that highly sensitive energy for me.
Mm,
And so learning that and then bringing that into the strengths
mm.
has been really interesting. And at some time I'd like to even do more study of like, okay, how does a non-HSP achieve?
Right.
Well, they have an achieve list, and they, if they check it off at night, they're fine. They go to bed, everything's great. On what I didn't do, I'll do tomorrow, and those kinds of things. There's no guilt, there's no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
A highly sensitive person who has an achiever list and is intuitive, like I'll give you an example of how this came to light. My sweet daughter, we were at a family thing, and afterwards she said, can I just bring something to your attention I don't think you're aware of? And she said, when you're talking to someone and they start, you don't feel like you're achieving anything in that conversation anymore.
Uh-huh.
You just pull out your phone and start reading your phone in front of them. And she said, I just want you to be aware of that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, you're so right. But so I started thinking about that, and I realized it's a couple of things. One is they'd either taken so much of my energy, I was trying to cut it off.
Right.
And rather than just move on and just say, I did this really rude thing and I just pulled out my phone, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I just told her, I said, thank you so much, because I never realized I was really doing that. And it's just part of this whole HSP achiever part of me of like, okay, check who's I've talked to at the party sort of thing, right?
Yes, yes.
Or this is not feeding my energy, it's draining my energy, so
Yeah,
therefore I'm going to do this.
yeah.
So I'm starting to really pay attention to that when I'm in crowds and with people, and I purposely put my phone in my zippered purse so that I can't, it's not that crutch, but that I have to like decide, okay, why am I getting frustrated with this conversation,
Right, right.
and how can I either change it or move on politely and not have them feel bad. So and then you look at I don't know, competition of an HSP can tend to get their feelings really hurt if they lose,
Mm,
if the competition is not done properly, right?
right.
That's
Fairly,
why
that sort of thing.
that's why now, you know uh when I was growing up, the only people who got the awards were the ones who actually excelled at the sport.
Yes.
Whereas now it's like every member of the soccer team gets a trophy.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying it's because we've accommodated those HSP people who we didn't want any kid feeling bad.
Right, right.
And so I think that sometimes we just have to, I think that's one of the biggest things for me in looking at my strengths is learning. Uh, One, the strengths help me learn so much about myself and about my spouse and about my kids and how they work. And but now I'm even I took it a new level when I learned about being a highly sensitive person and how that those strengths can play a different role. And so I think being a highly sensitive person with the strengths that I have superpowers.
Right,
Does my
right.
husband have superpowers? Oh yeah.
Yeah,
His superpower is he's a non-HSP, because
right.
he keeps that strength in, like, when I want to emotionally make decisions, like, oh, I think so and so, I think Philip's mad at me because I didn't go a certain way in the interview, or something. He's like, why are you thinking that?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah,
the I've learned to appreciate that. No, there's no emotion here. Just go with it. Right.
yeah,
And other times he validates and says, yeah, I think maybe you're right. So why don't you explore that a little more?
yeah.
So he has his own superpowers, but I think that understanding that in each of us is, where does that come into play?
Hmm.
And I have people who, when they learn about becoming that they are an HSP, they feel like they're broken. And I'm like, no, 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 no. This
Right,
is a superpower that you probably just haven't learned how to manage and
right,
how to make it be that. And I think it's that way with strengths. You can be in competition, it can be a great thing, or it can be to your to not to your benefit. And
right,
it's
right.
learning how do I work best and let that shine, and other times set it at the door.
It can be that
So I
healthy.
don't know if that helps, but I think that's, to me, I think it's really important. There's so many personality type things.
Right.
So I don't see strength finders as a personality thing. I think it's more of a understanding what you're really strong and good at, and maybe what you just need to let to other people do their thing about.
Yeah, what that driver is. And I like that when you're talking about, right, HSP, and you can see kind of your whole journey with where you started into what you've become, as the expert or the teacher, the instructor, the writer, all the different things that you do. And I could see diving into those ideas and those concepts the same way you're diving into HSP, that learning, that drive, that motivation to identify more of your own journey or the journey of other people, and
Mhm.
including things like HSP, in order to maximize people's health, maximize people's results, maximize, people's things, and in this case, their strengths, right? And combining things like HSP. That's awesome. That's incredible. I remember when you actually talked to me about that last time we chatted. I went and talked to my wife about it. I'm like, hey, are you familiar with this? Like, and so we started kind of diving down this rabbit hole with it as well. And so I thought, oh, this is fascinating. This is really interesting because it allows you to, again, opens up your perspective as someone with, woo, communication, relator, in my
Mhm.
top five. I'm always trying to connect with people on different things and talk to people about different things. And so being aware of their strengths in terms of what drives them and identifying, oh, are other things coming into play, right? Or
I
other,
think I think woo often is almost all the woos I know are highly sensitive because they can easily have their feelings hurt when they don't
oh, that's
feel
me.
like they're, like they're connecting and
For
they're
sure.
wooing people, right?
Sure.
So I think if there's any like strength that really needs to understand the HSP, a part of that is
Yeah.
it's okay, you know, you don't have to woo everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
All the things that you would teach them about strengths and
Yeah.
playing that, but in the same vein, also understanding the HSP role in that of like, hey, I'm in tune and knowing how to read. Like you may read and go, oh, I didn't, that person's not wooed at all. I'm
Sure.
unhappy. I failed at that.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
really maybe you didn't. It's just that they're a non-HSP and they just reacted stoically, they're
Sure.
just like, and so I think that that's a place where that comes into to play there. So I think understanding that and pairing that with the strengths helps just helps us appreciate who we are each more, and then understanding every single one of us have superpowers
Hmm.
through the strengths, through our ability to either be a non-HSP, not be a sensitive person. It's those are strengths. Just because I always tell people I have superpowers because I can feel things, I know
Sure.
things, but yet that can be a real challenge sometimes. There are days when we're supposed to go somewhere and I say to my husband, I am not peopling today. There is
Yeah.
no way I am
Yeah.
peopling today.
Yeah.
And I've really learned how, like at convention, I've had to really learn how to manage that. In
Oh, we
fact, I
talked
had a
about
whole
that. Yeah.
call with a lot of people last year who asked me how do I deal with convention and all those people without just totally exhausting myself.
Sure.
And there's a lot of easy things you can do.
Yeah.
So understanding that just makes us be better people. And that's what we're all about, right?
Oh,
Becoming the
100%.
best we can so that we can bring in the best out in other people.
Yeah. And then with that being said, in guiding, where, what you've realized your superpower, that others have superpowers, right? Whether if it's from a strengths perspective, HSP, or all the other things that you've learned, how does that, how does that help you in your leadership role to all these people that you guide, you lead? How do you think that translates to you leading your team? You talked a little bit about, their differences and whether you're an achiever, but identifying your superpower, acknowledging their superpower. What do you feel like all of these things do to basically help you guide your team, lead your team?
Well, I don't know. The HSP in me would say you should probably ask them, and they'd probably tell you I don't do a very good job of it. But but they're all still around, right? So
So you're doing something right, PJ.
I
Something.
must be doing something right.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, as an HSP, we tend to be really hard on ourselves and think, oh,
Sure.
I could do that so much better.
Yeah.
I mean, I get off every leader call, every mentor call, I get off and I think, oh, did I recognize them enough? Did I help them feel better about themselves? And did I help them see um, what they can do? And it's also I think a lot of them are getting so that they're more open with me about, well, that's beneficial, that's not beneficial, or
Right.
when you teach that way, that just goes over my head.
Mhm.
So, And I've learned to take those. In the past that would just hurt my feelings and be,
Sure.
and I've learned to just take it and go, okay, that's information. It's just information. What do I want to do with
Feedback,
it?
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's feedback. And it's just like, oh, that person's unsubscribed. Oh, I might have went to bed for a day over it in the past, but not
Yep.
really. But now I'm just like, oh, that's information. It's
Sure.
just
I like that.
information.
I
And
like that.
so I don't know. I would like to think, let's put it that way, because I don't really know. You'd have to ask them. But
Sure.
I'd like to feel, say they feel loved and they feel accepted and they feel, but yet they feel challenged
Hmm.
to be better,
Yeah.
want to be better. And yet they know that, I respect where they're at and I'm going to love them regardless.
Yeah.
And that there's hope for whatever they want to achieve
Hmm.
and that I believe in them.
Hmm.
Um, and so I don't know. It's always hard for me to really figure out what they're thinking if you don't just ask them what they think. But they all are around. I have leaders who've stuck with me for 14 years now. So um, and I've had some who have left,
Hmm.
and it was maybe at a time when I didn't really understand or learn well. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Well, I definitely think, as someone right outside, right, yeah, for information and feedback, when you mentioned your includer, as the content, the books, the curriculum, the things that you put out, the courses you put out, and you have so many people that are so attracted to your information, your style, if you will. I think that's enormous feedback, right? That's enormous feedback that obviously you're doing something right, not just as a leader within your own organization, but obviously a leader in this industry, in network marketing, as well as, let's just say the oil industry in itself, and giving people so much information they can process, right? Information that I have very low intellection, very low input, very low learner, right? So for the steps to make it simple for me to know what to do, oh, that's massive for me, right? That makes it easy for this guy that has activator number 3 to just give me the thing to tell me what to do and I'll do it, right? Kind of thing.
yeah,
So I think that speaks volumes of what you've done and what you're accomplishing, and what you're doing right. And I can hear that in your strengths, whether if it's from your communication, whether if it's your includer. And I love that you use the word challenge, because I think that's sometimes where we look at how competition can work, right? It is you, because it's natural within you, you're going to invite other people to challenge themselves, compete with themselves, right? Kind of thing. And I like that you use that word, because I think that's very true to your as I've listened to your ideas, your concepts, to get people thinking and get people learning, but also get people to the doing, right? To the doing
yeah,
aspect of their health or their business or these ideas, or bringing up things like HSP to go out and do your research, look into these things, that sort of thing. And I think that that's a healthy challenge, right? Part
right.
of part of what you incorporate, what you do, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I like challenges.
Yeah.
And yeah, and this is a little off the beat a little bit, but we've had the opportunity as a team the last year to we were the beta group with doTERRA to I came up with a 12-week challenge to run my team through, my
Mm.
builders.
Yeah.
And we ran a 12-week challenge the beginning of last year, and it was extremely successful. We worked closely with corporate on it, and um, then we ended up doing 3 of them last year, and they were extremely successful. But here's the thing about them is it wasn't ever, this is where bringing in my competition, my arranger and achiever,
Right.
as we put this together, it was never competing against each other.
Sure.
It was competing against, all right, you set your goals for what you think you can achieve, because we all know in this business we have some people who are putting in 5 hours a week and that's their max, and
Sure.
other people can do 40 a week and that's their max, right? So it
Yeah.
was looking at what's your goals, what's your commitment, where's your goals, and you got to stretch a little bit, right? And we had some really nice things they could win. And we're now finishing, this is our 11th week of the first one of this year. It's and it's greatly improved. And what doTERRA has done is they've taken that challenge, and I've worked closely with them, and they created it in such a way that they now have 4 other teams right now. I just got a call today from them. They have 4 other teams that are now doing this 12-week challenge.
Wow, that's awesome.
And yeah, and
Incredible.
my team loves it so much. They're always like, well, and we have trackers where they have to track their every
Yeah.
week and stuff. And
Yeah.
they actually have to report back. And we've had to report as being a beta group. We've reported to doTERRA
That's
every
amazing.
every week as to where we're at, how we're doing, what's our numbers. And so but the beauty is, again, this is where learning about competition. I never want, and as I help them develop theirs and make tweaks to the ones, they took mine and then they've tweaked it. I'm like, no, don't do that, because you don't want to create that feeling. You don't
Yes.
want to, someone will walk, there are group of people that would walk away from this challenge because of that.
Yeah.
You want to make this something that's challenging, and yet they truly can accomplish if they're willing to put in the work. They're
Right.
willing to,
Yes.
and then of course you have to teach them the skills and the tool, give them the tools
Yes.
to do that.
Yes.
And so it's fun that he called me today and he goes, hey, we have 4 now beta testing this, our first launch of the tracker and the 12-week challenge, and to see that starting to come to fruition, and where that will go. And so
That's
um,
amazing.
yeah,
I,
so challenges are good.
Yes, no, they definitely keep us on track and way to go. I think that's incredible. Now, looking back, everything that you spoke about, entrepreneurial, your growth, all these different things you've gone through. As we're ready to wrap this up, what do you think, looking back, PJ, was the single most valuable lesson you've learned along the way? For someone that's saying, okay, I want to, they heard your why, you talked about that moment with your husband, the 2 things, what, and someone feels, whether they're inspired, whether they know, they're like, okay, I know we got to do this kind of thing, or maybe they've been in it for a while, but they haven't all the way committed. What do what would be the single greatest golden nugget, that you could give them that has contributed to your success and growth over the course of these years?
Oh, I don't know if there's just one. I think it's really important to understand why you're doing what you're doing,
Mm,
and staying true to it,
mhm.
and making that why, the how of how to accomplish that simple. The minute you get it complicated, it's people don't want to be part, and especially today, people don't want to be part of complicated.
Mhm,
But knowing the why, but also knowing the why is going to change.
mhm.
I mean, when I first came in, it was to meet the financial need, help my family, help others, and pay those college bills, right? That was the main reason.
Yeah,
And then, of course, that why kind of changed a little bit as we got our kids through school. They're
right.
all now, they're all graduated, they're all doing their thing. And we've bought a new house, and we've, done all those kinds of things that you can do when you start reaching those financial goals.
Yeah.
Um, and so what's my why now is it's more focused on helping people. Like, for example, for me, but it's going to be different for every person.
Yeah.
And for me, my why was I really wanted to give people hope. I
Mhm.
really want to help people. So I adopted from day one, well, not day one, but the first few months of my business, I came up with this. This was the motto of why I do my business, is I want to help people um, discover solutions, achieve goals, and find hope.
Mm.
That's really what I want to do, because there's just so many people who don't have hope. And so this morning, it's funny, I was talking to my husband at lunch today. I said, look, I said, we have this joke that I may be in bed several hours in the morning, but I'm actually probably working. I'm on my phone and doing different things. So it's just I haven't moved from that office to another office
Right, right, right.
in the house. And I said, I got this call and I didn't know who it was. And so I usually don't answer. But so I tune in. I'm like, okay, should I answer this? And it's like, the answer is yes, answer this.
Yeah.
So I answered as this was lady who's a customer on my team. And she's like, I'm in such tremendous pain. I found out part of my jaw's decaying because my osteoporosis is so bad.
Wow.
And I don't care if I live another day.
Wow.
That was her words to me. What
Yeah.
can I do? and just giving her that hope of there are maybe some solutions that will help and some things that we could do, um and just letting her talk about that and talk through that. And so, the phone call probably took about 45 minutes, but when I hung up, I thought, okay, this is why I do what I do.
Mm,
This is why uh, this is the true satisfaction and passion of my work, is helping people. And sometimes I have to sit back now at my life and say, how can I help more people than just the one phone call?
for sure. For
And
sure.
just, but yet that's why I really do it. So I was telling my husband, this is why I do what I do.
Yeah.
This is why I don't go. And then I said, also, I can't make this kind of money doing this somewhere else. If I try to do it in another job,
Yes.
doTERRA pays really well
Yeah.
for doing something you're really happy and you want to do. And that's what you need to do, is find the why that doTERRA is going to let you earn that kind of money from doing that why.
Yeah.
And whatever it is for you. But for me, and I'd say a lot of people on my team, is we just want to give people hope. We just want to help the world heal
Yeah.
and find solutions to their answers. And so when you find that I think that's, for me, that's what drives me out of bed every morning. And when I think, oh, I just want to quit, this is so much, this is crazy. We
Yeah.
all have those days.
For sure. For
And
sure.
I loved, I forget her name, but she said, never quit on a bad day, ever. You have
Hmm.
to quit on a really good day. You're
Right.
going
Right.
to quit. It's because we all have our bad days.
Yeah. For
I mean,
sure.
I've had days where I sat on my floor and cried or whatever.
Yeah.
But know that every experience we have is we're learning. We're going to be a better leader tomorrow because of it.
Hmm.
And but just find your why and know that it's going to change, and that's okay, and adapt. But doTERRA is um, an amazing vehicle to help you accomplish those goals.
I love that. I remember even talking to you the first time, and I remember reading your quote. You will never regret having hope. And
Yeah.
as you speak to the things that you do and what you're about, what your team is about, what your culture is about, having that why. That's why and I brought this up last time we talked. Gallup, Jim Clifton did an interview with Simon Sinek. He talked about the importance, of course, starting with your why, all these different things, and our strengths come about to is the how, right? The why is the choices that we make. Well, I'm all in. I'm going to build this home. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to create this thing. I'm going to go into doTERRA. Our whys dramatically motivate us. Our strengths come in to develop the how, the blueprint, the plans, right? All these different things. And so I think having that why is critical for all of us, right? For all of us to really engage in that, identify that, get clear on that. And then, like what you said, it's going to evolve, it's going to change, right? It's going to go from helping the kids get through college to something else. And when you allow that to evolve, because the moment you let go of that, those are the days when you quit, when the bad days, right? Versus quitting when on the good days, kind of thing. And so I think that's important. So I love that you're sharing that. I think that's good for all of us to remember, to not just, because you're not just in it to achieve one goal, right? You're in it to achieve all these things that you're constantly evolving. And I think the work that you're doing, the book, the constant update it, transition to membership into this course, now getting these certifications, doing these things, it speaks volumes as to, a lot of people think achievers are just about hitting the thing and then they're done. No, they're constantly right in the game. And so that's amazing, PJ. That's amazing.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for being here. Anything else as we're wrapping this up? Anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to share?
I don't know. Philip, you're the kind of person we could sit around at the after dinner for like 4 hours and still be talking, right? Um, I it's just fun to talk about things and what we've learned, and I'd love to hear more from you sometime and just more about what you've learned, because interviewing all these people that you've interviewed and you'll continue to have interview, you're going to have a wealth of wisdom and understanding that you're gleaning from all those people. So what an opportunity for you, and hopefully people will listen to them and gain what you've gained
Yeah.
from that. So yeah, and there's always so much to learn. I can get overwhelmed by it sometimes, thinking, oh, I just need to, I mean, learner's number 8. Oh, I need to learn. And I'm like, no, no, no. You learn enough to do what you need to do, and then you learn more.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. You learn enough to do what you need to do, and then you go back and you learn
You
more.
learn more.
That's great. And you know what? If you've watched it, hopefully you've watched this entire video that you end on that.
It's one thing.
Yes, that is.
Learn enough to do what you need to do.
Yep. And then learn more.
To invite six people around your table, open the
Yes.
box, get the oils out.
Yes. Yes.
Just learn enough to do what you need to do. And then know that you're going to learn more. You're going to learn more. And then
Yeah,
that
you're
you'll
gonna
go
be
do
on the
from
team.
that.
That's
So
wonderful. I think that really sums up, I think, the importance of where people lack is, to take that action up into that point that you're never going to learn it all. Let's be honest. As much as
no.
knowledge you have, you're still in the process of learning, right? So learning enough so that you're constantly taking action along the way, you're going to be confident you're going to keep developing.
Well,
So
and I think that can be applied to oil knowledge, but it also applies to running a business. It applies to everything.
sure.
I can't have a baby until I know everything about raising babies. I'm like, oh my land. Like, good luck.
There'd be no one on this planet, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like you've learn enough to do the business to just start, learn
Yeah.
enough to share, learn enough to,
Yeah.
and know that here's the beauty in doTERRA.
Yeah.
It is its own family in its way. And there are so many people who are so willing to help.
Yeah.
And when you don't know the answer, there's so much out there to just find one little nugget that's going to help you do what you need to do.
100%.
Yeah. And then go learn more.
And then go learn more. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you again, PJ. Thanks
Oh,
everybody
you're so
for joining.
welcome.
Yeah, you
All
have
right.
yourselves a wonderful afternoon. Thanks so much for joining. Please continue to follow. Please continue to watch these interviews. And do me a favor, type in the chat. Tell me what your favorite nugget was. Tell me what you learned. Tell me what who you're following next. Who should we interview next? So thank you again. Have a beautiful afternoon, a wonderful day. Thank you again, PJ. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you.